Welcome, Negronis with Nord, episode number 68. We're taking it old school today. We are having a glass of scotch. If you've been with us long enough, you remember I used to exclusively drink whiskey during these. I was telling Kelsey one of the things I think has changed about this show over the years is back when we started, Fohr was a much less intense organization, much smaller. I think I used to have 2 whiskeys before I even started filming. So I was feeling spicy and saucy and ready to like throw out some hot takes from the beginning. I don't really drink during the show that much anymore because I generally have to work for quite a few hours after filming and it fucks with my ability to do that. You know, today, screw it. This gives me an opportunity to bring up one of my favorite new products recently. If you know me in person, I've talked to you about this. Miracle. This, I don't even know if this shit's legal in the US, honestly. It's definitely not in English in the back. This is a like anti-hangover pill that I take every time I drink now. It is incredible, okay? I would know. And let me tell you, this thing is amazing. I'm actually gonna take a couple right now. So I don't know what's in it, nor do I care because like the stuff I put in my body, like honestly, it doesn't really pay for me to like scrutinize what is in everything. It's like, you know, when the whole vaccine conversation was happening and people were like, are you worried about what's in the vaccines? I was like, are you fucking kidding me? It absolutely limits the hangovers the next day. I had my bachelor party this weekend upstate. I was handing the shit out the whole weekend and there wasn't a single hangover to be seen the entirety of the weekend. Miracle, if you're watching, hi, I'm the dude that I think just bought 40 packs of it recently. I didn't buy 40 packs of this because I'm a raging alcoholic. I did because I'm putting it in the welcome basket bag for the wedding that's coming up. So I was buying it for everybody that is going to the wedding. That's how passionate I am about this product, okay? I love this product. Miracle, love you. Okay, quick hot take prediction. I was excited about Threads. I think it's dying. I don't know that Meta will deprecate, meaning shut down Threads at a certain threshold. I think there's a good chance within 6 months it could be completely dead. Lots of excitement about it in the beginning, then usage fell off a cliff. I just went and checked today because it was feeling like really empty and quiet today. I follow 550 people on Threads. There was 24 posts in the last 5 hours of those 550 people that I follow. I follow 650 people on Twitter, and there were 55 posts in the last hour. That is roughly 10 times as much content being posted per hour with my following on Twitter versus Threads. One of the things that keeps these social platforms feeling alive and vibrant is that every time you go, there's going to be something new. I can spend 2 or 3 minutes on Twitter. I can hit refresh. There's new shit. I can spend 20 minutes scrolling through Insta stories and I can pull down and refresh and there's new shit. There is always new stuff. TikTok, obviously, there's just like constantly new content. But once a platform stops having that and once you start to feel like you check it even 10 minutes later and there's nothing new, that platform is going to start to die. So as of today, I'm putting it on notice. I am officially on Threads death watch. I do not know if it's going to be able to make it. I'm going to make an early prediction and say it's going to fail and it will be shut down within a year. If it's going to be shut down in a year, that begs the question, should you care? Should you invest in it? I still think it's worth playing around with. It's not going to take an enormous amount of time to create this content. Okay, let's get to some quick questions here. Number 1, really light, easy, simple question. How do you deal with the worry of becoming irrelevant and losing everything? So existential dread on a Tuesday afternoon. I'm going to split that into 2 different parts. 1, the fear of becoming irrelevant. Very real. You absolutely will become irrelevant. The example I always like to use is the Rolling Stones. You know, as a collective, one of the like cooler groups of people to ever come together to like make something. If Mick Jagger and Keith Richards can't stay relevant and cool, what chance do you have? You have no chance. Boom. Question answered. You will lose relevance. And it has nothing to do with you. The fact is that culture will just move on. You know, the Rolling Stones were this incredibly innovative band that was making great music. People wanted to listen to punk and they wanted to listen to hip hop. They wanted to listen to glam rock. And like ultimately, there was nothing the Rolling Stones could do about that. They couldn't become a rap group. If culture wants to listen to hip hop and you make rock and roll, you're fucked as far as relevance goes. That's the beauty of culture, right? Is that it moves on, it evolves, it creates spaces for new voices, for new groups of people to kind of step into that limelight. But there is also only so much room at the pointy end of the spear when it comes to cultural relevance. If, as an influencer, you are trading just on cultural relevance, right? If you are helping brands to be relevant and that is what you are charging them for, over time you will lose the ability to charge for that. Now, let's use the Rolling Stones. They are still one of the top grossing acts every time they go on tour. They have a core audience that loves them, that will pay a lot of money to see them play songs that they wrote 50 years ago. They have new fans all the time. I didn't listen to the Stones in high school. I didn't listen to my 20s. I didn't listen to them in my early 30s, you know? I read Keith Richards' book when I was in my mid 30s and loved it and dove into the Stones and have been a fan since. So it is why it's so important to build a community, invest in that community, and do whatever you can to kind of make sure you continue to serve that community. They play the music that everybody wants to hear. There's actually this great article I read once about Billy Joel and Elton John, and you know, Billy Joel was talking about one of the riffs that he had with Elton was that he didn't understand why Elton kept making new music. And he would go on tour and he'd play all these new songs, and Billy Joel realized very much that like, look, people just want to hear Piano Man and We Didn't Start the Fire and New York State of Mind and Uptown Girl and all the fucking classics, the reason you go to a Billy Joel concert, right? It's why it's so important to invest in that community, because that is something that can sustain you over time. And I do think that you can still have a career and be irrelevant. If cultural relevance is the bar that we have to cross to be able to have careers, long-lasting careers, then that's going to be really difficult for anyone. Now, the second part of that question, how do you deal with the worry of becoming irrelevant and losing everything? So how do you deal with the worry of losing everything? I think we could do a whole episode on financial responsibility and how to set yourself up as a creator for long-term financial success. But this is something that I worry deeply about with a lot of influencers. Let's say we look at a decade, the first decade that you are an influencer, and you go from 0 followers to 500,000 followers. And let's say you start making money in year 5 when you hit $50,000 in year 5. And over the next 5 years, that goes up to $500,000, right? Okay, amazing. So you are one of the most highly paid people in the world. That is incredible. You know, the next year you make $500,000 and you feel like, wow, this is never going to end. You don't save money. You buy a $2 million apartment. You know, you go buy a nice car. Let's say all in, you're spending $20,000, $25,000 a month on your expenses. You're traveling, you're shopping, you know, maybe you're putting away 50 grand a year. But now, the next year 16, you make 400 grand. And then year 17, you make 250. And then you make 150. I'm only using these numbers, you know, they can be bigger, they can be smaller, but I'm just speaking to how you might risk the like losing everything. I think that is going to be the reality for a lot of creators over the next 10 years. I think that people often underestimate how long life is and don't have a clear plan for how they are going to continue to afford their lifestyle. If you are reliant on brand advertising dollars for your business, you have to make sure that you are putting in the work to, retain that attention and make sure that you continue to give those brands what they want. Look, we at Fohr here, we're dependent on brand advertising dollars, but we have 250,000 influencers we can work with. 3 years ago, TikTok was $0 of our revenue. This year, it will probably be, 30, 40% of our revenue, right? We were able to make that shift really easily, but a lot of creators have struggled to make that shift, right? And so it is difficult for an individual creator to build a career that is going to last multiple decades. If you're in that position, you do have to be thinking about the long term and what you can do and how you are going to continue to make money 20 or 30 years from now. If you're 25 years old and you're a creator, you could have 30, 40 more years of work. 40 years. How are you going to support that? I think if we think about the question financially and say, how do we avoid losing everything? I would say save a lot, invest in things that are repeatable and scalable. If it makes sense, start a business. Look, and it doesn't have to be in your space. I've been so inspired by what Lindsay Silberman has done with Hotel Lobby Candle. She's not a candle influencer. She saw an opportunity to build a brand. They are crushing it. I can't and won't share their numbers, but they are doing incredibly well. They were just hiring a bunch of people. That's a great example of somebody that has built a large business around being an influencer, but then started something else that 10 years from now, Hotel Lobby Candle can be a lot bigger than Lindsay Silverman's influencer career can be. Castamico has Arium jewelry. That brand has also grown and done incredibly well. Building equity and starting something that can scale and that can get bigger than you is one really good way to ensure that the work you're doing now doesn't just fizzle out should you become irrelevant and lose your ability to make money off of brands. I just want to acknowledge this is a really hard conversation to have with yourself. When things are going well, it's not really helpful to focus on what am I going to do when things don't go well, right? Like, I am by nature an optimist. You have to believe in yourself more than anybody else will believe in you. And so it's unnatural and often unnecessary and unhelpful to sit around ruminating over your potential demise. But I also say this all the time at Fohr, hope is not a strategy. You can't sit around just hoping you'll figure it out. It's also important for you to, acknowledge and be super clear about what your relationship with money is, how much of it you want. If you looked at $150,000 a year, which is a lot of money, some people will look at that and say that would be incredible if I could make that and I could live on it. Some people can't, or don't want to. And the scale of what they want out of life is different. Both of those things are valid and both are totally fine. But I think you have to, have that conversation with yourself early. If you get into a situation where the business is really taking off, you're making a lot of money as an influencer, which, by the way, I hope everyone listening to this does. You're getting $20,000 checks dropping in, and you feel like, holy shit, I can do a post and I get 10 grand. When I used to do photography, I can also acknowledge how different it felt. I would get a check for $3 grand or something, right, for shooting a project, and it didn't feel like getting $3,000 of salary for my normal job, right? It felt like, ooh, I can spend half of that, right? Because I'm getting it all at once, and it feels bigger because of that. If you start to experience that success and the checks start getting bigger as an influencer, it gets hard to even understand what that money is and what it means. You make $50,000 in a month, and you want to buy a Chanel bag, it's $6 grand, and you're like, who cares? You didn't think oh, I've got to pay $20,000 of taxes on that, and maybe next month I only make 10K. When you have those big months, it's really easy to just rationalize carving off a chunk for yourself and going and buying yourself a treat or something that like will make you feel better. I've talked to a lot of influencers who were in that $350,000 to $500,000 a year range of earnings, who have dropped down into the 75 to 150, but who are living 350 to 500 lifestyles. And I encourage all of you to not put yourself into a situation where a 10 or 20% drop in your earnings would cause you to struggle to maintain an elevated lifestyle that you have created. For many people, living close to our means is just a reality. It's not something that we can control. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about prematurely upgrading your lifestyle because you have had a short-term windfall and you feel like that will never change, and you will always increase your income year over year, and you will always do better. In the influencer space, there is added pressure to look like you're living a great life, and you've got a chic apartment or house, and you drive a great car, and you're taking photos in front of the G-Wagon, and you're going to the marble slab place and looking at marble. Is there any more annoying content than people looking at fucking marble slabs? It is possible to just pick out marble for your house without posting about it on the internet. This whole episode is going to be consumed by this question. I don't know if that was helpful. We could dig into the money stuff more in future episodes if you have questions about it. I am by no means a financial advisor. I've seen this go well for people, and I've seen people struggle, and hopefully can help you avoid some common mistakes. As always, if you've made it this far, thank you. If this is your first time seeing this, or you want to be reminded to see it in the future, remember to like and subscribe. Also hit the notify button, that little bell in the top of the video, and you will get notified when we put a new episode out, which should be every week, unless I don't feel like it, in which case we skip a week. But as always, thank you, and we'll see you next week.